In a major development that could reshape the lives of thousands of African immigrants in the United States, President Donald Trump's administration has received judicial backing to proceed with the deportation of nearly 7,900 Cameroonians. This comes after a U.S. district judge lifted an earlier injunction that had prevented the administration from ending TPS for nationals of Cameroon and Afghanistan. With this court decision, the Trump administration can now implement its April 2025 directive to revoke TPS protections, sparking a fresh wave of debate around immigration, national security, and humanitarian responsibility. To understand the full weight of this decision, we need to unpack what TPS really is. Temporary Protected Status, or TPS, is a provision in U.S. immigration law that grants temporary legal residency and protection from deportation to individuals from countries experiencing armed conflict, environmental disasters, or other extraordinary conditions. Cameroon was added to the list of TPS-eligible countries due to prolonged unrest, particularly in its Anglophone regions, where violent clashes between government forces and separatist movements have created a humanitarian crisis. TPS allows beneficiaries to live and work legally in the U.S. until the program is either extended or terminated, depending on conditions in their home countries. According to U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, approximately 7,900 Cameroonians are currently living in the United States under this program. The lifting of the court injunction now places them at risk of removal, raising concerns among rights groups and immigrant advocacy organizations. These groups argue that the conditions which led to Cameroon's initial TPS designation have not improved significantly, and that returning nationals to regions still experiencing violence could expose them to serious harm. They have also warned that many TPS holders have been living in the U.S. for years, building families, securing employment, and contributing to their communities. The Trump administration, however, holds a different view. Officials maintain that TPS was never intended to provide long-term residency and that conditions in Cameroon and Afghanistan have improved enough to justify ending the protections. In April 2025, the administration announced plans to terminate TPS for both Cameroonians and Afghans as part of a broader immigration strategy focused on limiting the scope of temporary relief programs. A spokesperson for the Department of Homeland Security stated that a thorough review of country conditions had been conducted, leading to the conclusion that TPS was no longer warranted in these cases. The decision has drawn sharp criticism from Democratic lawmakers, with more than 100 of them signing a letter urging the administration to reconsider. Their argument centers on humanitarian principles, pointing out that returning individuals to unstable regions could violate basic human rights. They also emphasize the contributions of TPS holders to American society, from paying taxes to filling essential jobs. Advocacy groups echoed these sentiments, framing the move as a departure from long-standing U.S. values regarding refugee and immigrant protection. On the legal front, several organizations have vowed to continue challenging the decision in court. They are exploring avenues to argue that the revocation of TPS may lack adequate justification or fail to consider the full scope of risk faced by returnees. These groups also raise concerns about the procedural fairness of the decision-making process, including whether sufficient notice and opportunities for appeal have been granted. From the Trump administration's perspective, the policy aligns with a broader campaign promise to enforce immigration laws more strictly and to reduce what it views as loopholes in the immigration system. Officials argue that TPS has been extended for many groups far beyond its intended purpose, and that continued protection can only be justified when the original conditions, such as war or natural disaster, remain ongoing. They add that extending TPS indefinitely undermines the credibility of the program and places a burden on immigration systems designed to function as temporary stopgaps. Cameroonians affected by the decision now find themselves in a state of uncertainty. Some have expressed concern about the safety and stability of returning to a country they left due to violence or political instability. Others worry about leaving behind lives they've built in the United States, including jobs, homes, and children who are American citizens. There are also logistical questions surrounding how and when the deportations would occur, what kind of support returnees might receive, and how the Cameroonian government will respond to the sudden influx of returning nationals. At the same time, there are voices in the immigration policy space who argue that the termination of TPS is not inherently unjustified. They point out that the program has specific eligibility criteria based on changing country conditions, and that the U.S. government has a responsibility to reassess those conditions periodically. In their view, granting extensions or renewals without evidence of continued need could risk politicizing a system meant to be based on objective assessments. In Cameroon, the situation remains complex. While some areas have seen relative stability return, particularly in Francophone regions, violence and insecurity persist in Anglophone zones. Human rights organizations have documented ongoing clashes, arbitrary arrests, and restrictions on freedom of movement. This mixed picture has made it difficult to reach consensus on whether the country is safe for returnees. The Cameroonian government has not yet issued a formal response to the U.S. decision, but any mass return of nationals would likely present administrative and economic challenges. As both legal and political debates continue, the future remains uncertain for the 7,900 Cameroonians whose TPS protections are set to end. The ruling has brought renewed attention to the role of TPS in U.S. immigration policy, the limits of presidential discretion, and the ongoing debate over how the U.S. balances national interests with humanitarian commitments. While the Trump administration sees the move as a necessary correction, critics view it as a potentially dangerous rollback of protections for vulnerable individuals. For now, all eyes are on the courts, advocacy groups, and policymakers to see whether this decision marks the end of TPS for Cameroonians or the beginning of a new legal battle. Your perspective matters. What do you make of Trump's decision to send 7,900 Cameroonians back to Cameroon after revoking their temporary protected status? Share your thoughts and insights in the comments section below. If you like this video, be sure to subscribe to the New Africa channel and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our informative future videos. Stay informed, stay engaged, and thank you for watching.